Ladies and gentlemen, come gather round, come gather round, come gather around. You know what's gross? This is what's gross. Behind me is probably one of the ugliest engines known to man. Yeah, Chevy LS. I like them. I like everything about them, except they don't look pretty. So we're going to fix that, and we're going to try and make some kind of cover that fits this truck. Kind of vintage, kind of quirky. Kind of like some people we might know. Let's go! Okay, I'm a big believer in modeling stuff in cardstock or cardboard or paper or something, because then you can at least check to see if it fits before you screw up an expensive or hard to find piece of metal. So I did that, but I found it a little limiting and frustrating this go around because the paper was just too flexible. So when I was reasonably confident in the overall shape, I cut out a piece of a 55-gallon drum and started fine-tuning it. And in this case, I'm going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth to get the rough basic shape and then smooth her out and make it all look really nice. This is just a big old barrel that I have found from a dubious origin, and I'm shaping it. Here you can see two of my 5-angle grinders. If you came here from the sheet metal brake build where you got to witness my 4 grinders turn into 3 grinders, we now have 5 because there's strength in numbers, I think, and the more, the merrier. So this is kind of the look I'm going for, and here's a neat trick. Cut the head off a bolt and sharpen it to a point, and that can be like a scriber. You can even, in some cases, use it as a center punch. It was easy for me to find the 2 holes at the back, but I wasn't quite sure where that one was. So a scribe, center punch it in the middle of that line, and then I know where that hole goes. And then I use my step drill to open it up and chamfer for the holes. And then I'm slotting that hole with a round file just to make sure there's some flexibility in the installation of it. Because we ain't perfect. And if you make a little bit of a adjustment or sloppability in there, it makes your day a whole lot happier. In this case next, I wanted to have the barrel sit kind of at the same angle as the motor, not just kind of resting on whatever it happened to be on. So I'm trying a bunch of things, trying to figure out the look that I wanted, trying to match the right angle, not have it too high in the back or looking dumb. And then dial caliper to help figure out the lengths. And then I'm just writing on there in Sharpie so my old man brain doesn't forget by the time I walk 20 feet over to the 20 feet, 10 feet, I forget, to wherever I go in that scene. And then I'm going to take a piece of, looks like 3/4 tube, probably 3/4 round tube, might be 5/8, I don't know. I have a stack of tube that I've collected from places. Here's the lathe that's working in the background. So for all of you who came here from the restoring an old lathe, yeah, it does work. I do use it. So I'm cutting these off, facing the ends, holding it down, tacking it into place, and these are the risers to help this thing sit at the height I want. And they're just tacked with MIG, and then when I'm feeling saucy, I will weld it all the way through. I guess you could TIG weld them, but for me, this is a weld that nobody's going to see, so I don't really care. MIG is nice for quick and dirty. So, weld it all up. In this case, I'm using my old Lincoln welder. For the top, it's just to make the paint and the fasteners where they go so it doesn't scratch all the paint. I just welded a couple of probably 5/16 washers around the holes so that will take the abuse of the nuts fastening this thing on and off and whatever I have to do. In this case, I am silicon bronze TIG welding it. Pretty much the same as brazing. It's a little bit stronger a weld than pure brazing, but I can do it with a TIG, so I have a little bit more pinpoint precision, and it doesn't run all over the place like a braze does. There's all kinds of different types of welding. They all have their benefits, and I tend to use a little bit for everything except stick. I do not like stick welding. Leave a comment if you love stick welding. I might delete it. Then to my sandblasting cabinet to make it all nice and pretty again for the next phase of welding. Check the link above to upgrade your freestanding sandblasting cabinet, probably from Harbor Freight or Princess Auto. Woo! Look at that. It's like an Easter Island head or something. Kind of creepy. I had the same facial expression one morning when I woke up. So I was actually getting to the point where I was going to primer the whole thing and then spray it, and I wanted to spray it body color. And then got to thinking as I was about to mix up the primer, you know what would really finish this off and make it look a whole lot better? Putting a round on the edge all the way around the perimeter of this. So I picked up some 1/4 inch solid round, and here I'm just tacking it into place and then heating it and bending it with the oxyacetylene torch. I've got a little tiny torch that I bought from actually one of the former owners of my own house. When I finished building my workshop, I invited the neighbors, and one of the neighbors' father used to own the house I live in now, and so I invited our neighbor and his father, mom and pop, invited his folks out as well. And he's looking around the shop and said, "You don't have an oxyacetylene torch?" I said, "No, it's on my list of things to get. I don't use it a lot, but I would like one." He says, "I got one for sale." So now I have an oxyacetylene torch. And I guess it's like Hakuna Matata, circle of life, you know. Things just keep coming around. It's all good. So we're heating it, shaping it, trying to get it reasonably centered. And while part of my brain wants to have 4 decimal places of perfection, the world doesn't always work with that level of perfection for me. So I have little sayings to tell myself when it's not as awesome as I think it's going to be. You know, in 5 years from now, when this is covered with engine blow-by and road debris, how much am I going to care about how imperfect it is? I mean, my engines are clean when I put them in, and I never really clean them again. So, it'll work. I don't build these for car shows. This is to be driven. Just want it to look reasonably cool. So a bunch of heating and shaping and trying to make it look good. It's kind of therapeutic in a way. I can see why people would get into art metal structures and sculptures and things. I wonder where else I can put a barrel on this truck. That could be kind of interesting. If you're new to the channel, check out the link above on how to light, run, and shut down the oxyacetylene torch set. Kind of handy. You can do just about anything with an oxyacetylene torch. You can shape metal, you can obviously heat metal, you can weld, you can braze, you can unbraze with the right cutting head attachment, you can cut. You can oxyacetylene weld a variety of different metals. I have done aluminum. It's a little bit of a trick. I've done steel. I have repaired cast iron using silicon bronze rod. Don't know what else I've done with it. I think I set my hair on fire once, but that's a different story. Took 2 lengths of this. I forget how long it was. It might have been 5 or 6 feet. I believe I bought the 1/4 inch round from Princess Auto. So, you know, everybody's favorite store. If they didn't close, I'd never leave. Anyways, we're getting the shape in there, trying to make it happen. This part that I'm working on right now is the back, so nobody's really going to see it. So we're just trying to make it look reasonable. Conceivably, I could make some kind of dies or run the edges through the bead roller and could create the same kind of finish, but I'm not quite sure how to deal with the ribs that go around the curve of the barrel. Used to be a fellow out locally who had an RX-7, and there was a whole bunch of RX-7s that came out to run our local hill climb. It's Knox Mountain Hill Climb. And one of them used like half of a garbage can as a hood scoop, which is kind of creative. I remember seeing a smash-up derby car that used half of a gas tank to use as a hood scoop. Looked almost like one of them Mopar hood scoops. If you're cutting a gas tank in half to get a hood scoop out of it, first, I applaud you. Second, don't do that. That's like, well, okay, there's ways to cut gas tanks apart. And we don't cover that at my school because, no, just no. Anyways, that's where it's looking. A little bit of tweaking and trimming to make sure things lined up until I finally give up and figure it'll work fine. And then we're going to blast it a little bit more with the sandblaster to get a nice fresh finish so that I can fill the gap between the barrel and the 1/4 inch round that we just put on the outside. Probably not yet. Oh, there were some spots that I decided I shouldn't have cut as smooth as I did. I'm using a chunk of, I think it's 1/4 inch or 3/8 copper as a backing plate. You can weld steel on top of copper and it doesn't stick, so it's kind of nice for patching holes. So this is silicon bronze again, and I'm just using it to fill that gap. It's relatively low temperature compared to steel, and it flows nice, so it should fill in all the gaps fairly well. I've used, I think I discovered silicon bronze just a couple years ago. I've been using it for attaching JIC fittings. They're the same angle as AN fittings for the fancy stainless lines. So I've added, using silicon bronze, essentially steel AN fittings to go on my Hydra Boost on the 61 Chevy brake system, as well as the fuel lines, because I'm running a 1/2 inch fuel line on the system. And I like being able to smoothly put this all in. It's kind of neat. I've got a whole bunch of different rods that I use for TIG. I've got stainless, I think it's 308L for joining stainless to not stainless, steel, and silicon bronze is kind of fun. It is my go-to for some things that I want really well sealed, but also a fairly nice, smooth, gentle kind of join. It's important when you TIG welding, keep your filler 90 degrees to your tungsten, and always try to keep the end of your tungsten under the argon. It helps keep the filler from oxidizing if you keep it there. One of the things I do with TIG, and I'm sure everybody does, is I sharpen both ends of the tungsten. In English, that's called foreshadowing, because there is guaranteed you're going to dip the tungsten, and then you need to go and sharpen it. So if I don't mess the tungsten up too badly, I just flip it around and use the other end. I once bought a whole bunch of tungsten, a whole box of it, and the sales clerk was like, "Are you sure you want that much?" And I was learning tungsten, so yeah, I totally want that much. Because I sucked it at TIG welding then. I suck less now. And here you're watching me silicon bronze weld silicon bronze filler together. I am that cheap. Helps you stay under budget when you're pinching pennies wherever you can. So that's all stuck together. I think I run it through the sandblaster again. Oh, no, not yet. I'm going to sand the snot out of it. Now I'm taking a page from Make It Custom with Carl Fisher, and he buys some skookum little 3-inch sanding discs, Roloc 3M sanding discs, and he runs the 3-inch until it nukes the edges, which it always does. But the rest of the disc is still useful. So he cuts them down and runs them on a 2-inch Roloc backer, and then when they lose the edge, he cuts them down and runs them on a 1-inch backer. And I thought, you know what? That's pretty genius. So I now have 3 wee angle grinders like this, not angle grinders, die grinders, angle die grinders, and I have a 3-inch disc. I just don't have any, or a 3-inch backer. I don't have any 3-inch discs. So what I've been doing here is running the 2, cutting it down, putting it on the 1, and just try to use them up as much as possible. I think it's genius. And then I'm finishing it up with a finger sander. I don't remember where I bought this one, but I can't stand it. It needs like a helping shove to get it going every so often. I've taken it apart. I've cleaned it. I just think it's a piece of poo. Now we're going to spray some epoxy. This is 2-part epoxy. It's 2K. It's not a diisocyanate, but you should wear some lung protection anyways. And I tend to wear eye protection because otherwise the overspray gets on my glasses, which is annoying to remove. So we're mixing it up 1-to-1, the 2 parts of this Proform epoxy primer. Spray it in my little sprayer, check the spray, and then hose her down. And I put 2 coats of epoxy primer on the whole thing. And you can see from here it's not discolored anymore because I have sandblasted it thoroughly. I like to put epoxy on freshly blasted steel. Then we're spraying it with the we're spraying it with the body color. One light coat, one wet coat, and then I think I did a third coat. And in all of these, I added, I think 4.5 or 5 parts of a flattener, just to give it a kind of a satin finish. Looks kind of like this. Eh? Couple 6mm threaded rod, some cool acorn nuts on the top, and we got a cover on our LS. A little less ugly. What I like about it is it kind of finishes the prettiness of the engine, because the LS is not a really pretty engine, but it's not like it's got some plastic 2000s Vortec cover. It's kind of modern, but kind of retro, but kind of weird, but kind of funky, all at the same time. 55-gallon drum. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for watching. See you later. Okay, this part is pretty. I like that part. I think it can stay.